"Hey, bestie. Welcome back to On Christmas Morning," she heard her billionaire husband say. "My assistant is pregnant with my child. You remember where we left off, right? That press conference? The betrayal Elizabeth orchestrated? The cameras, the lies, the public humiliation? Well, buckle up, because this is part 2, and what's coming next? It's fire. It's real. And it's the beginning of everything Elizabeth never saw coming. Let's go." Imani didn't sleep that night, not even close. She sat curled on the edge of her bed with her knees pulled to her chest, staring out the window, watching headlights drift past in the distance. The world had seen her story, and now they were dissecting it like gossip over breakfast. Damien had offered to stay. She'd told him no, not because she didn't need him, but because she needed to remember how to stand up on her own. Yet even as the silence settled around her, his warmth remained. The scent of his cologne clung faintly to the throw blanket he'd left folded at the foot of her couch, and the memory of his hands, gentle but strong on her shoulders, calmed her nerves more than any sleep aid ever could. Still, her mind spun like a wheel without brakes. Was this the price of speaking out? Of not folding quietly into the role of disgraced ex-wife? She opened her laptop. The homepage blinked. Search bars, breaking headlines, thousands of articles with her name, and one tab already open, an email Nina had forwarded. Subject line, speaking offer, $50,000 for Women in Leadership Summit. Imani stared at it. They wanted her to speak, not about being married to Preston, not about Elizabeth, not even about the scandal. They wanted her to speak about resilience. The irony almost made her laugh. She clicked the tab closed without answering. Then, another ping. A comment thread with over 10,000 responses. "She's exactly what our girls need to see. Too polished, too pretty, too media-trained. She left because she wanted the attention. She left because she knew her worth." She shut the laptop entirely. And then, her phone buzzed again. Not a headline, not a news alert. A text. From Preston. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." She didn't reply, because that wasn't an apology. It was an escape hatch. She rose from the bed and paced slowly to the kitchen. A glass of water. A breath. A decision. Tomorrow, she wouldn't sit still. She wouldn't hide. Tomorrow, she'd fight back. By 6:15 a.m., she was dressed in black slacks, a deep wine blouse, and a fitted wool coat. Her curls were pulled into a sleek bun. Minimal makeup, just enough to look collected, controlled. At 7 a.m., she was seated across from Vera in a private meeting room in Midtown. "You sure you want to do this?" Vera asked. "I'm not going on camera," Imani replied. "But I'm not staying quiet either." Vera slid a folder across the table. "Here's our response packet. It outlines county reports, financial transactions, email chains, all legal, all traceable." Imani opened it. Each page was crisp, clear. Her truth, on paper. "I'm going to release this in print," Vera said. "No quotes from you, just facts. A clean, undeniable record." Imani nodded. "Let the public decide." "And they will," Vera added. "Most people see through Elizabeth's drama. But we'll be strategic." Imani exhaled deeply. "Thank you." As Vera stepped out to coordinate the distribution, Imani sat still, hands clasped in her lap. Then her phone rang. "Damien." She answered immediately. "Morning," she said quietly. "You slept?" "No." "You eating?" "I'm trying." "You standing?" She smiled faintly. "Barely. I'm on my way." Imani blinked. "You don't have to." "I'm already parked," he said. "Look out the window." She turned her head. There he was, standing beside his truck, coffee carrier in hand, looking up at the building like he'd been sent to guard it. Her heart warmed so quickly it hurt. She hung up and went to meet him in the lobby. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped inside without asking. "Thought you might want backup," he said. "I always want backup," she replied. He handed her the coffee. Triple shot, oat milk, no sugar. She blinked. "How'd you remember that?" Damien smirked. "You told me once. I don't forget things you say." They rode in silence. It wasn't awkward. It was grounding. By 10 a.m., Vera's press release went live. By 10:05 a.m., 3 reporters posted screenshots of Whitman family tax violations. By 10:20 a.m., An anonymous assistant from the Whitman legal firm leaked a voice note of Elizabeth rehearsing lines before the press conference. By 10:30 a.m., Imani was right trended in 4 states. Imani sat on the edge of a conference table, coffee in hand, watching it unfold in real time. Her body didn't relax, but her spirit did. Damien stood beside her, arms crossed, phone silent. "I told you," he said softly. "Truth holds." She nodded, but deep down, she knew this wasn't over, not even close. At 2 p.m., Vera returned with a grim expression. "There's one more thing," she said. Imani stood slowly. "What is it?" Vera held out a manila envelope. "Preston just filed an injunction," she said. "He's trying to block the next phase of construction on Magnolia House." Imani's breath hitched. Damien's fists clenched. "He can't do that," he said. "He's arguing emotional distress," Vera explained. "Claiming this project is an intentional attack." Imani stared at the envelope. Silent. Then she whispered, "Let him." Vera frowned. "What?" "Let him file it," Imani said. "Because for every paper he files, I'll build another room. For every lie he tells, I'll tell another woman's truth. For every door he tries to close." She paused. Her voice steadied. "I'll build 10 more." Damien stared at her like he was seeing something holy. And maybe he was, because that was the moment she stopped being the woman who left and became the woman who led. The courthouse lobby was packed. Camera crews, reporters with mic flags, security flanking every door. It was the kind of organized chaos reserved for celebrities, political scandals, and billion-dollar lawsuits. Imani Hale never imagined she'd be the subject of such attention. And yet, here she stood, not as a victim, not as the betrayed ex, but as a woman answering the call. "I will not be silenced." She walked into the press briefing flanked by Nina on one side, Vera on the other. No entourage, no designer flex, just clean lines, a neutral power suit, and a calmness that said, "I'm not here to crumble." Reporters shouted her name. One yelled, "Ms. Hale, do you have a response to the injunction filed by your ex-husband?" She didn't break stride. Another, "Are you building this estate out of revenge?" Still calm, still forward. She reached the podium and unfolded a simple statement from her coat pocket. The cameras clicked. The room hushed. Imani looked directly into the sea of microphones. "I was never supposed to speak," she began. "I was supposed to smile, wave, and disappear." Flashbulbs exploded. "But women across this country are expected to disappear every day," she said. "After abuse, after betrayal, after loss. They are expected to shrink, not build." A beat. She continued, voice unwavering. "I'm not building a legacy out of bitterness. I'm building a home for every woman who thought she had no voice." Gasps. Murmurs. Several reporters leaned in closer. "This project will go forward, not because I say so, but because it's necessary." Then, without theatrics, without tears, she folded the statement and stepped back. Vera stepped forward immediately. "There will be no questions," she said firmly. This was a statement of truth, not negotiation, and they walked out, side by side. No stumbles, no fear, no looking back. By the time Imani returned to the estate, the internet had already moved. Trending tags. Hashtag Imani Hale speaks. Build Magnolia. Voice not vengeance. Hashtag stand with Imani. Emails flooded in. Donations from women across the country. Testimonies. Letters. Volunteers ready to fly in. Even her old alma mater's Women in Law Society released a public endorsement. Imani Hale is the embodiment of truth under pressure. In the kitchen, Tasha had printed one particular comment and taped it to the fridge. "I don't know her, but I want to build with her." Imani stood in front of that paper and let herself feel it. Not the praise, but the promise. Later that evening, Damien arrived unannounced, but not unexpected. She opened the front door to find him standing there, hoodie half-zipped, toolbox in hand. "I figured you'd be too polite to ask for help," he said. She smiled softly. "You figured right. Good thing I don't wait for permission," he added. They spent the evening going room by room, checking updates, marking blueprints, measuring beams. At one point, as she knelt to mark a corner bracket, Damien stepped behind her and handed her a pencil. Their fingers brushed. She looked up at him, eyes quiet. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The way he looked at her said everything. I'm not here to save you. I'm here to build with you. And somehow, that was more intimate than any kiss. Elizabeth paced her penthouse office with fury. Her lawyer stammered through bad news. The press is turning. 2 sponsors pulled out of your charity brunch. There's a leak coming out of the accounting department and… Elizabeth snapped, "Fix it." He blinked. "Ma'am," I said, "fix it." She turned to her son, who sat on the edge of the sofa, elbows on knees, face pale. "You let her control the narrative," she hissed at Preston. He rubbed his temples. "Mom, maybe this is too far." She stared at him. "I lost my home," she whispered. "My family's name is being dragged because of your mistake." Preston looked up slowly. "It wasn't a mistake. I lied. I let you manipulate me." Elizabeth's jaw dropped. He stood. "I need to fix it," he said. "No," she growled. He walked toward the door anyway. For the first time in years, he didn't look back. That night, as Imani poured tea and read through contractor notes, her phone buzzed. Voicemail. From Preston. She hesitated, then played it. "Imani, I lied. I never slept with my assistant. I let my mother convince me to say it to provoke you. I let her shape our story, and I'm sorry. I watched your press conference today. You're not the woman they're trying to paint. You never were. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it." Imani stood still. The message ended. She didn't cry. She didn't react. She simply saved the voicemail. Not for revenge, not for evidence, but because hearing the truth, even late, was still a kind of healing. Before leaving that night, Damien reached into his truck and pulled out a worn leather folder. "I've been working on something," he said, handing it to her. She opened it. Inside were architectural sketches of the counseling wing. But more than that, each room was named after a verb: rebuild, reclaim, recenter, rise. She looked up at him, eyes shining. "I wanted each woman to walk into a word," he explained. "A word that tells her, you're not what broke you." Imani blinked away tears. "Damien." He shrugged lightly. "It's just a blueprint." "No," she whispered. "It's a vision." And for the first time since that Christmas morning, she smiled without sorrow, because her story was finally hers. Not emotionally, physically. The studio lights blazed bright enough to blind, but the air conditioning blasted, like they were trying to freeze the truth into something more palatable. Imani adjusted the mic clip to her blazer, subtly rubbing her fingers together beneath the table to shake off nerves. This was her first national interview, and she was ready. The host, a well-known anchor from a primetime talk show, smiled at her across the table. "Are you comfortable?" the woman asked. Imani nodded once. "Let's begin." A producer counted down silently with her fingers. 3, 2, 1, and the red light came on. "Today," the host said, "we welcome attorney, advocate, and founder of Magnolia House, Imani Hale." Applause played softly in the background. Imani sat tall, calm, her hands folded in her lap. The host continued, "You've been the center of national attention since Christmas Day. What made you speak out now?" Imani looked directly into the camera. "Because silence protects the wrong people," she said. The host blinked. Imani went on. "For too long, women have been told to suffer privately, to not embarrass their partners, to clean up messes they didn't make. I've lived that. I left it, and now I'm building something that breaks that cycle." The host nodded. "Some people accuse you of using your platform to retaliate. Is that true?" Imani's tone remained cool. "No. My platform was created by people trying to silence me. I just chose to stand on it instead." As the segment aired, social media exploded. "She speaks so clearly. No bitterness, just purpose. That's how you carry grace under pressure." Elizabeth Whitman could never. Within 30 minutes, her interview was clipped and reposted by multiple news platforms. Donations to Magnolia House tripled overnight. The women's organization that previously released a critical statement, they issued a quiet retraction. And behind closed doors, the Whitmans began to panic. In the Whitman boardroom, Elizabeth paced while 3 attorneys spoke at once. "We can't spin this anymore," one said. "The media is siding with her," another added. "Her story's stronger than ours," a third concluded. Elizabeth slammed her palm on the conference table. She is not the story, she snapped. We are the legacy. She's a phase, a headline, but even she knew, deep down, that her grip was slipping. And the world didn't care about legacy anymore. The world wanted truth. Meanwhile, Preston sat in a private meeting with his executive board. The tension was unbearable. One board member cleared her throat. Preston, you told us your assistant was pregnant. You let us believe Imani left because of infidelity. He couldn't meet her eyes. We shielded you, she continued. We supported you. And now we know none of it was true. Preston finally spoke. I panicked. I made a mistake. Another board member stood. Your mother staged a public meltdown. She's costing this company millions. Preston whispered. What do you want me to do? The board member leaned forward. Fix it. Back at the estate, Imani walked through the unfinished halls of Magnolia House with Damien at her side. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The air was different now. He carried himself like someone who'd chosen his place beside her. Not behind, not above, beside. They stopped near the glass entryway, where the stained glass panels had finally arrived. Damien tapped one gently. They came in early. Imani smiled faintly. They're beautiful. He nodded. They shine when the light hits from inside. She looked at him. Like truth. They stood there a while longer, watching the colors shift. Then Damien turned to her slowly. I need to say something, he said. She looked up. I know this started with you rebuilding something broken, he said. But this thing between us, it's not charity. It's not me trying to save you. It's real. Imani's heart pounded. I don't want to rush anything, he said. But I do want to be the one you call when the walls crack, when the phone rings, when the world gets loud. Imani blinked back a tear. And when the light hits from inside, he added, I want to be the one standing next to you. She stepped forward, slowly, and touched his chest. I've had a lot of people walk beside me when the cameras were on, she whispered. But you're the only one who stayed when the lights were off. He held her gaze. And for the first time, she leaned in, softly, carefully, and kissed him. Not a rush, not an escape, but a promise. Later that evening, after Damien left, Imani sat at her desk when Vera walked in with a single envelope. What is it? Imani asked. Vera raised an eyebrow. It's from the assistant. Imani stiffened. Vera handed it over. She asked me to give it to you directly, said it explains everything. Imani opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter. Simple, handwritten. Miss Hale. I wasn't pregnant. I never was. I never slept with Preston. I was told to lie. Threatened, actually. By Elizabeth. I know I should have come forward sooner, but I was scared. Thank you for not becoming the monster they claimed you were. I hope someday you find peace. No name signed. Just a single line at the bottom. Magnolia House is needed. Imani folded the letter. Her hands didn't shake. Her breath didn't hitch. Because the truth was finally on her side. Imani didn't say a word after reading the assistant's letter. She just handed it to Vera. Vera read it, lips tightening, eyes darkening. This is your vindication, she said quietly. This letter proves everything. Imani didn't nod, didn't smile, because vindication doesn't always feel like victory. It just felt quiet, heavy. You want me to release it publicly? Vera asked. Imani paused. Not yet. Vera frowned. Why not? Because I want to give him one chance to say it himself, Imani replied. On record. Vera looked surprised. Preston? Imani nodded. The next morning, at a neutral legal office downtown, Vera arranged a private room. No cameras, no reporters, just a single audio recorder and one quiet offer. Tell the truth, or we will. Preston arrived 15 minutes late. Same tailored look, but less shine. His shirt was wrinkled, his collar undone. He walked in, eyes low, shoulders dipped. Imani sat with her back straight. She didn't speak first. He did. I read your press transcript, he said. She gave no response. He sat across from her slowly. Vera clicked on the recorder and left the room. Silence stretched. Then finally, Preston's voice broke. I lied. Imani stayed still. I wasn't sleeping with my assistant. I wasn't expecting a child. My mother told me to say it. She said you were getting too powerful, too visible. She was scared you'd outshine us. Imani's jaw clenched. She said if we embarrassed you, You'd go quiet. Preston looked up at her. But you didn't. Imani still didn't speak. He swallowed. I'm sorry. I let her use me. She raised an eyebrow. No one uses you unless you let them, she said softly. He nodded. I'll give you a written confession, he offered. You can publish it. Imani paused. I don't want revenge, Preston, she said. I want closure. I want space. And I want my name back. Preston looked ashamed. You deserve all of it. She stood. He did too. I hope someday, she said quietly, you learn to be your own man. Then she walked out. And she didn't look back. Damien leaned against his truck as she exited the building. He didn't ask what happened. He just opened the door for her. You okay? He asked, once she sat inside. I'm better, she said. Not fixed, not healed, but lighter. He nodded. They drove off. No music, no distractions. Just the soft hum of peace. Across town, Elizabeth watched her empire tremble. One news outlet published leaked audio of her instructing the assistant to lie. A whistleblower dropped invoices showing PR payments made from her personal account to stage the smear campaign. And to top it all, her charity board suspended her. For the first time, the cameras weren't pointed toward her in admiration. They were pointed in scrutiny, and even the wealth couldn't spin her out of it. Back at Magnolia House, Damien climbed scaffolding to fix an overhead beam. Imani stood below, directing volunteers, clipboard in hand. One of the volunteers leaned toward her. Is that your contractor or your man? Imani blinked, caught off guard. Before she could answer, Damien called down, Catch! She looked up just in time to grab the rolled blueprint he tossed. As their eyes met, above and below, Imani smiled. She didn't need to answer the volunteer, because in that look, it was already obvious. After cleanup, the sun was setting. Workers had gone home. Imani stood in the doorway of the main hall, watching the golden light stream across the finished tile. Damien walked up behind her. Come here, he said gently. She turned. He took her hand, slow, steady. May I? He asked. She nodded once, and he kissed her. Not a kiss of rescue, not lust, but deep, tender affirmation. She leaned into it, letting the months of pain, betrayal, and silence melt for just a second. That night, a package arrived. No return label. Inside was a legal document. Elizabeth was suing for defamation. Imani stared at the letter. No tears, no panic. She picked up her phone and called Vera. It's on, she said. Vera's reply was calm. Good. Let's finish this. Imani sat at her desk with the lawsuit in one hand and a pen in the other. A month ago, this letter would have crushed her. But now, it just confirmed what she already knew. Elizabeth Whitman didn't know how to lose with grace. Vera walked in, tossing a thick folder on the desk. We've got enough counter-evidence to bury this suit in paperwork for 2 years, she said. I don't want it to drag, Imani replied. Then let's end it fast. They crafted a countersuit, strategic, calm, airtight. And this time, they would not play defense. The next morning, Imani walked into the estate to find Damien standing in front of a small camera crew. Wait, what's this? She asked. He turned, smiling. Local news wanted a soundbite. I figured it was time I said something. She raised an eyebrow. You don't have to protect me. I'm not, he said. I'm standing next to you. There's a difference. He turned to the reporter and nodded. The camera rolled. Damien spoke simply. I've worked with dozens of clients across the country, but I've never met a woman more determined, more grounded, or more worthy of this project than Imani Hale. She's not just restoring a building, she's restoring lives. Imani stood still, breath catching slightly. He continued, this isn't just her legacy, it's ours, all of us, and I'll be here until the final tile is laid. The reporter turned to Imani. Miss Hale, care to comment? She stepped forward. Just 2 words. Let's build. Elizabeth held a press event at her private club. Dozens of high society donors, investors, and socialites gathered. She wore ivory, spoke slowly, painted herself as a concerned mother, until, midway through her speech, one of the large screens behind her flickered. Then it cut to the leaked audio of her threatening the assistant. Her guests gasped. She froze. The host fumbled. We're experiencing technical diffy. Another clip played. Her saying, "I'll destroy that girl's reputation if it's the last thing I do." Elizabeth stepped back, mortified. Her reputation collapsed in 30 seconds, and no PR team in the world could spin it this time. 2 days later, Imani sat at Magnolia House reviewing blueprints when Tasha ran in holding a tablet. "You need to see this." Preston was live on a morning talk show. Hair cut, suit clean, voice steady. "I want to publicly apologize to my ex-wife, Imani Hale." The host leaned in. "Why now?" "Because I let my mother control me," he said. "I lied. I hurt her. And I watched her rebuild herself into something I don't even deserve to admire." The host nodded solemnly. And to Elizabeth Whitman, Preston added, "You no longer speak for me." The host's eyes widened. The internet exploded. That evening, the courtyard behind the estate was lit with string lights. Workers, volunteers, survivors, families, everyone who'd given something, time, energy, sweat, gathered for a soft opening celebration. Damien found Imani near the stone archway they rebuilt by hand. "You clean up well," he said, eyes sweeping over her deep green dress. "You don't look bad yourself," she replied, smiling. Tasha raised a toast to the woman who turned pain into purpose. Everyone clapped. Imani's cheeks flushed, but she raised her glass. To every woman who was told to be quiet and spoke anyway. Cheers erupted, and when the lights dimmed and music played, Damien took her hand and led her to dance under the stars. No photographers, no lawsuits, just rhythm, laughter, and one hand finding home in another. The celebration had long ended. Volunteers had gone home. Tasha was asleep on the couch with blueprints on her lap. But Imani couldn't sleep. She sat on the back steps of Magnolia House, wrapped in a soft sweater, staring up at a Georgia sky studded with quiet stars. And she wasn't alone. Damien sat beside her, arms resting loosely on his knees, silence between them comfortable. Until he said, "There's something I haven't told you." Imani turned her head slowly. He didn't look at her. He looked at the horizon, as if the words needed space to come through him. "I almost got married once," he said. Imani blinked. "What happened?" She was smart. Beautiful. "Funny," he said, "but she didn't like the parts of me that were still growing." He paused. "She loved the version of me that looked good in front of her parents. Not the one who stayed up late sketching homes for people who couldn't afford them. Not the one who wore work boots to dinner sometimes." Imani listened quietly. "She wanted perfection," he said. "I only had truth." He rubbed the back of his neck. She left, not suddenly, just slowly. Compliments turned to criticisms. Support turned to silence. He finally looked at Imani. "And by the time the engagement ended, I didn't miss her. I just missed who I thought I could be when someone believed in me." Imani breathed slowly. "I know that feeling," she said. Damien tilted his head gently. "I spent so long trying to make Preston proud," she said. "I forgot what it felt like to be proud of myself." Their eyes held. She continued, "And the first time I sat in this house alone, I didn't cry because I missed him. I cried because I didn't recognize the silence." Damien's voice was gentle. "What do you hear now?" She smiled faintly. "Myself." Damien turned fully toward her. "I haven't told anyone else that story," he said. "Not even my family." Imani's brows lifted. "Why me?" He answered without hesitation. "Because you don't ask for people's stories to use them. You ask to understand." She swallowed, heart warm and tight. Damien leaned slightly closer. "I don't want to be another man who lets you down," he said. Imani's breath caught. "You haven't," she said. "You've shown up. Every single time." He touched her hand, gently, like asking for permission. And when she didn't pull away, he laced their fingers together. They walked the garden paths by moonlight. Past the counseling wing, past the restored fountain, past the old oak tree that now bore fairy lights strung by local teens. "Every woman who comes here will walk this same path," Damien said softly. "And they'll never know that we stood here too." Imani smiled. "Maybe they will." He looked at her. "Maybe they'll feel it," she whispered. "The intention, the love." Before parting ways that night, Damien stopped at the gate. "I know we're building this place for others," he said, "but I also want to build something with you." Imani looked at him, exhausted, healed, afraid, brave, all at once. "I'm not asking for promises you can't make," he added. She stepped toward him. "Good," she said, "because I'm not making any I don't intend to keep." He grinned. She smiled. And under the moonlight, without pressure, without performance, they held hands in silence, because sometimes love doesn't rush in loud. It waits. It watches, and when it's safe, it stays. Imani couldn't sleep, not because she was restless, but because she finally felt too safe. And that terrified her. She sat up in bed at 2:12 a.m., staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly, thoughts racing. Why was it easier to rebuild a house than open her heart? Why did a man like Damien, steady, grounded, kind, scare her more than any courtroom? She pressed a palm to her chest. Her heartbeat was fast, but not from panic, from possibility. Damien was still on the couch. He hadn't gone home. Imani had offered the guest suite, but he said the couch was fine. She assumed he would leave after she went upstairs. But when she checked the monitor at the front desk, he was still there, awake, sitting upright with a book in his lap. She padded down the steps in bare feet. "Hey," she whispered. He looked up, surprised, but not startled. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. He gestured to the empty spot beside him. "Join me." She hesitated, then sat. Before they could exchange more than a few words, the fire alarm in the back storage wing went off, shrill, blinding, piercing through the quiet. Imani shot up. "The kitchen?" "No," Damien said quickly, already moving. "That's the north wing. Electrical panel." They ran. Imani's robe flared behind her. Damien sprinted ahead with his flashlight. Inside the supply closet, smoke curled from an overloaded outlet. "Damn it," Damien muttered, yanking the breaker shut. The smoke slowed. The alarm still screamed. Imani grabbed the extinguisher and stomped out the last of the tiny flare-up near the wall. Within minutes, it was contained. No damage. But the shock left her shaking. Damien reached for her shoulders. "You're okay," he said softly. "It's over." Imani nodded, breath jagged. She turned into his chest. He held her, without hesitation, not as a protector, but as her equal. They returned to the couch, exhausted. Imani wrapped herself in a blanket, hair frizzed, eyes wide from adrenaline. Damien handed her a glass of water. "You did great," he said. "I froze," she whispered. "No, you acted. Fast." She looked up at him, and just like that, the wall cracked another inch. "I don't usually let people stay," she said quietly. "I won't take it for granted," he replied. She hesitated, then asked the question that had lingered in her heart for days. "Why me?" He didn't blink. "Because I never have to guess who you are," he said. "Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, you're still you." She didn't tell him to leave that night. He didn't ask to stay. They just fell asleep on opposite ends of the couch, blankets, pillows, quiet space between them. It wasn't physical. It was spiritual. For the first time since Christmas morning, she wasn't alone. The sun rose gently through the front windows of Magnolia House. For once, there was no media frenzy, no Whitman scandal, no construction chaos, just a quiet morning wrapped in golden light. Imani stretched on the couch, blanket still around her shoulders. Across from her, Damien sat in the armchair, eyes closed, head tilted back. He hadn't left. He didn't even look uncomfortable. She watched him for a moment, marveling at how peaceful he looked. Her life had been anything but peaceful. But maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe she deserved peace too. Tasha entered quietly and froze mid-step when she saw the scene. She whispered, "Oh, so he stayed, huh?" Imani shot her a look, trying not to smile. There was a fire scare. He helped. Nothing happened. Tasha raised an eyebrow. Yet, Damien stirred awake, blinking at the two women. "Good morning," he said, voice slightly raspy. "Coffee?" Imani asked. "Always." They sat at the small table in the staff kitchen. Toast, scrambled eggs, tea, silence. It wasn't awkward. It was grounding. "You staying long today?" Damien asked. "I have meetings," Imani replied. "Board stuff. Then press interviews." He nodded. "Need me here?" She hesitated, then said honestly, "I always feel steadier when you're around." He looked up, the corners of his mouth lifting. "Then I'm staying." Around 11 a.m., a delivery van pulled up. Two workers wheeled in a massive wooden crate addressed to Imani Hale, Magnolia House. She signed the slip, puzzled. When they opened the crate, inside was a handcrafted bench engraved with over 100 names. Each name belonged to a woman who had written to her over the past few months. Survivors, mothers, sisters, daughters. A plaque on the bench read, "For every woman who thought she was alone, until your story told her she wasn't." Imani's throat tightened. Damien stood beside her, hand brushing hers. She whispered, "I never imagined this." He replied, "But you built it anyway." Later that day, while giving a private tour to a group of donors, Imani overheard two women whispering about Damien. "Who's that? The builder? Girl, if I were 20 years younger." Imani tried to act unfazed, but that small curl of something unfamiliar stirred in her chest. Tasha caught the expression and smirked. "Jealousy looks cute on you," she teased. Imani rolled her eyes. "It's not that deep." But she knew better. She wasn't jealous because Damien got attention. She was protective because he'd earned his place beside her. That evening, Damien was walking out when Imani stopped him at the door. "I need to say something," she said. He turned. "What's up?" She stepped closer. "I'm not used to depending on anyone. I usually run when things get too real." He nodded, silent. "But I don't want to run from this," she said. "Not anymore." He stepped closer. "You're not the only one learning how to stay," he said. They stood there, faces close, breathing the same air. No kiss, no dramatic music, just mutual understanding, and the softest smile exchanged between two people trying. CNN requested an interview. Not about the betrayal, not about Preston, not even about Elizabeth. They wanted to talk about the blueprint, the mission, the building. Imani sat in front of a wall lined with sketches and photos of the Magnolia House journey. The interviewer leaned in and asked, "What gave you the courage to keep going?" Imani didn't hesitate. "Knowing what happens when women stop." The host nodded slowly. "And what happens when we don't?" Imani smiled. "We rebuild." The host turned to a secondary subject. "There's been a lot of speculation about your lead builder. Damien Rhodes?" Imani laughed softly. "What about him?" "Well," the host teased, "some say this wouldn't be possible without him." Imani's answer was simple. He believed in the project before there was even a blueprint. Damien, watching from off-camera, felt the truth land in his chest. He didn't need the spotlight. But that acknowledgement? It felt like home. While Imani's interview aired across networks, Elizabeth made one final attempt to reclaim her image. She booked a major live interview. But halfway through, the interviewer pressed, "Why did you accuse your daughter-in-law falsely?" Elizabeth deflected. The interviewer repeated, "There's an audio clip, Mrs. Whitman. It's your voice." Elizabeth froze. Then did the one thing no one expected. She removed her mic, stood up, and walked out. No spin, no tears, just silence. And America watched her exit not as a society matriarch, but as a fallen empire. 3 weeks later, the doors of Magnolia House officially opened. Women lined the sidewalks. Children ran through the garden. Community leaders arrived in droves. Imani stood at the podium, ribbon in front of her. Tasha at her right. Nina at her left. Vera close behind. Damien beside the columns. She cleared her throat. "When I first stepped inside this house, I was broken," she began. "But now, this space isn't about who broke us. It's about how we rose." Thunderous applause followed, and when she cut the ribbon, she did it with both hands steady. After the ceremony, Imani and Damien walked the garden path alone. "You looked powerful up there," he said. "I felt calm," she admitted. He smiled. "That's your real superpower." She looked at him. "I have one more thing to ask," she said. "Anything. When the last wall is painted, when the last woman checks in, when the cameras stop." She took his hand. "Will you still be here?" He didn't answer with words. He leaned in and kissed her like he meant to stay forever. The Magnolia House ribbon cutting was a success, but that night the house was quiet. The crowd had left. The workers had gone. The lights were low, and Imani sat in the center hallway with Damien beside her, knees drawn up, shoes off, backs against the painted wall. They didn't speak at first. They just let the silence breathe, until she whispered, There's something I haven't told you. Damien looked at her. I lost a child 2 years ago, she said. His expression didn't shift. He just listened. It was early. Not many people knew, she continued. We hadn't even picked out names. Preston was relieved. Damien's jaw tightened slightly. I thought something was wrong with me, she said. That maybe it was my fault. It wasn't, Damien said softly. I know that now, she replied. But for months, I didn't trust my own body. I didn't trust my heart. He reached for her hand. You don't have to explain, he said. She met his eyes. I want to. He took a breath. My dad left when I was 12, he said. Walked out, no warning. Imani blinked. I swore I'd never become him, Damien continued. But that fear, that I might still let someone down, sticks. She held his gaze. You haven't let me down, she said. He exhaled. I keep waiting to mess this up. She smiled faintly. So do I. And just like that, they both laughed. A quiet, shared laugh that broke the tension. They stood and walked through the east wing, past the common room, past the resource center, to the final room they hadn't yet furnished. Imani opened the door. It was empty. White walls, polished floors, morning light waiting to happen. I wanted this room to be a sacred space, she said. Damien stepped inside. For prayer? For peace, she replied. No phones, no talking, just healing. He nodded. They stood in the middle, hands linked. No vows, no fanfare, just presence. And for Imani, that was more intimate than any ceremony. Before they left for the night, Damien turned to her at the front steps. We don't need a label, he said. We don't need a plan. She tilted her head. But I do need you to know this, he continued. I choose you every day, no matter how hard, how messy, how complicated. I choose you. Imani stepped closer. And I choose you back, she said. They kissed, not because the world was watching, but because it wasn't. And because finally, after everything, they both believed they were worth choosing. Monday morning arrived like a thunderclap. Vera stormed into Imani's office holding a thick envelope. Grant committee called early, she said. Imani, they're offering you $2 million in additional funding. But, Imani blinked. But, they want corporate sponsorship branding, national exposure. They want you to expand. Imani froze. Expand. It meant growth, reach, more lives saved. But it also meant more control lost, more eyes watching, more battles. She took the envelope in her hands. And across town, Damien was staring at one of his own. A national design firm had sent Damien a personal offer. They wanted him to lead a massive urban renewal project in Portland. Full creative control. 6 figures. A design team of his own. He read the letter 3 times. It was everything he'd dreamed of before Magnolia House. But now the dream had a face, a laugh, a woman with a mission that felt like his own. He didn't call her. Not yet. He needed to think. That evening, Imani and Damien met in the courtyard, each holding news they hadn't shared. He noticed her quiet. She noticed his hesitation. They didn't argue. They just paused. Until Damien said, You look tired. She replied, You look distant. They stared at each other. Then she asked, Are you leaving? He froze. I might be. Imani turned away. Good to know, she said. He stepped forward. That's not fair. She nodded. Neither is building a future alone. The moment cracked. Neither of them knew how to stop it. Imani sat in the Magnolia House boardroom, surrounded by advocates, lawyers, and donors. The offer from the grant committee was on the table, literally, but so were her values. They wanted branding rights, executive oversight, a corporate voice in programming. Vera whispered, We could do a lot with that money. Imani stared at the papers, then slowly said, We can do a lot without losing ourselves too. She signed the rejection letter. Vera blinked. You sure? Magnolia House was built to protect women, Imani said, not profit from them. Meanwhile, Damien stood at his drafting table, Portland offer in hand. He stared at the numbers, the titles, the promises. Then he looked at the pencil sketches of Magnolia House on his wall. He folded the letter, slipped it into a drawer, and closed it without telling Imani, because he didn't want to influence her choice, or worse, make it feel like an ultimatum. Later that night, Imani and Damien sat under the stars again, but this time, the silence was heavy. He reached for her hand. She pulled it away gently. "You still haven't told me," she said. "Told you what? Whether you're staying?" He swallowed. "I turned it down." Her eyes widened. "When?" "This morning." "Why didn't you say something?" "Because I wanted you to make your decision without pressure." She stood slowly. "But relationships aren't about protecting each other from hard conversations. They're about having them." He nodded. "I know," he whispered. "But I'm still learning how." The next morning, Imani left early for a conference. She didn't wake Damien to say goodbye. He didn't text her either, because love isn't just about staying. Sometimes it's about learning how not to run. And both of them still had learning left to do. The energy at Magnolia House shifted. Without Damien on site daily, it felt quieter, not worse, not broken, just different. Imani doubled down on meetings, legal filings, programming setups. She spoke on 2 national panels. She reviewed 5 new trauma counselors. She didn't text him once, not because she was angry, but because she was choosing to focus on what she'd built. Even if her heart missed the man who helped her lay the foundation, he didn't disappear. He just stepped back. Quietly, he called Tasha to check on lighting orders. He delivered materials at night when no one was around. He even installed 2 additional emergency exits on his own, just in case future clients ever needed a way out fast. He didn't do it for recognition. He did it because he still believed in the mission. And, in her, news broke that a women's shelter downtown had been forced to shut down due to building violations. Suddenly, Magnolia House was flooded with transfer cases. Women, children, emergency beds filled in hours. Imani stayed on site 48 hours straight. Her eyes burned. Her body ached. But she didn't waver, because she knew this was the moment Magnolia House was built for. Reporters gathered outside. Community leaders called to offer help. Politicians released praise statements. And through it all, Imani remained focused. She walked one teenage girl to her new room herself. She comforted a mother of 3 who hadn't slept in 2 days. She made soup in the communal kitchen when the staff ran out. She wasn't playing the role of CEO. She was being what she'd always been, a woman who gave, even when she had nothing left to spare. From the street, Damien watched the news coverage in his truck. He saw her carrying that pot of soup. He saw her crouch beside a sobbing child and tuck their blanket. And he realized, walking away wasn't noble. Staying in the shadows wasn't selfless. If he truly loved her, he had to show up, fully. Imani didn't know Damien was coming. The city had invited her to speak at a special community fundraiser, honoring local heroes, builders, and advocates. She arrived in a slate blue gown, tired but radiant, standing under floodlights in front of 500 guests. The host introduced her with praise, but before she could take the stage, he called up someone else. "Please welcome Damien Rhodes." Imani's breath caught. He stepped out in a tailored suit, looking every bit like the man she remembered, only steadier. He took the mic. "I wasn't supposed to speak," he said, "but I need to say this. I walked away," he said, "not because I stopped caring, but because I didn't know how to stay and still love myself." A hush fell over the crowd. But then I saw her, Imani Hale, carry a community with no sleep, no help, and no fear. He looked toward her. She didn't need me to finish Magnolia House, but I realized something bigger. I need her. Murmurs, gasps, camera flashes. "I turned down a 6-figure job for that woman," he said, "and I'd do it again." The crowd erupted. "Imani?" She just stood frozen. After the event, Damien waited outside. No pressure, no expectations. Imani approached him, arms folded. "You know that was unfair," she said. "I know. You made that about me." "No," he said gently. "I made it about us." She studied him, then finally said, "I didn't ask you to give that job up." He stepped closer. "I know. But love is a risk I'm finally ready to take." Under flickering streetlights and with news vans rolling out behind them, she grabbed his jacket and kissed him like she'd been waiting her whole life to be chosen out loud. He wrapped his arms around her waist. And this time, there were no doubts. Back at Magnolia House, Vera met Imani with a quiet face. "What's wrong?" Imani asked. "The board wants you to take a national role," Vera said. "They want to expand Magnolia House across 4 cities. Imani blinked. "That's good, right?" Vera hesitated. "It means leaving this location behind. You'd manage from afar." Damien entered seconds later, beaming from the earlier kiss. He heard it, and his face fell, because love was finally here. And now something else might pull her away. Imani stared at the expansion proposal laid out in front of her. New York, Chicago, Houston, Oakland, all waiting for their own version of Magnolia House. The board promised full support, a national media campaign, and enough funding to sustain all 5 locations for 2 years. "But," Vera said carefully, "you'll need to be based in D.C. full-time." Imani sat back slowly. Across the room, Damien stood in the doorway, arms crossed. He didn't say anything, not because he wasn't proud, but because his heart was quiet. That night, they didn't talk much. Imani worked late. Damien stayed busy with repairs he didn't need to finish. At dinner, they passed each other food and made small talk about electrical updates. But not dreams, not futures, not each other, because love doesn't always break loudly. Sometimes it drifts like fog, unnoticed until you can barely see your own hand. The next day, Damien left a wrapped package in her office. Inside, a framed blueprint of Magnolia House, the very first sketch he ever drew. On the back, he'd written in pencil, "No matter what city you're in, this will always be ours." Imani touched the frame and pressed it to her chest. She whispered, "I'm not ready to let this go." Later that evening, they met at the back porch again. No pretense, no armor, just vulnerability. Damien said, "I'll follow you." Imani blinked. "What? If DC is what you choose, I'll go." She stepped back. "But what about your work?" "I can build anywhere," he said. "But I can't rebuild you." She looked down, heart thundering. "I'm scared I'll lose myself again," she whispered. "You won't," he said. "Not if we protect each other." She didn't give it yet. Because some decisions require silence, reflection, faith. But as she reached for his hand, she already knew what her heart was leaning toward. Not fear, not legacy, but love. Imani sat in her office with a pen in her hand. No keyboard, no assistant, just ink and her final decision. She wrote each word slowly, carefully. Because this wasn't just a letter of acceptance or rejection, it was a declaration of who she had become. "I respectfully decline the expansion offer in its current form," she wrote. "I believe in national healing, but not at the cost of losing the roots that made it possible. Magnolia House began here, and here is where I will continue to grow it, on our terms." Vera broke the news to Damien before Imani had the chance. "She's staying," she said with a smile. Damien froze. "She turned it down?" "Only the version that would have taken her away from everything," Vera said. "She's pitching a new plan, one that lets her grow without giving up her foundation." Damien stepped outside. He didn't call her, didn't text. He just showed up at Magnolia House with a rose and a box of new tools. That night, they sat on the newly completed rooftop garden. Imani turned to him, eyes soft. "You heard?" He nodded. "I did." She laughed gently. "Did you think I'd leave?" "No," he said. "I just needed to know you wouldn't leave yourself." She looked at him. "You were never the sacrifice," she whispered. "You were the gift." He stepped closer. "And you were never a project," he said. "You were the place I wanted to stay." A week later, the city held a dedication ceremony. Not for the building, but for her. A plaque on the front gate read, "Magnolia House, founded by Imani Hale, sustained by love, and made possible by every woman who refused to disappear." Damien added one more line under it with his own hands. "Built to be a home, not just for healing, but for choosing again." It was quiet this time. No press, no scandal. Just Imani and Damien sitting by the fireplace inside Magnolia House, wrapped in blankets, holding hands, sipping cocoa. Outside, women gathered in the garden, celebrating, laughing, hugging. And inside, Imani smiled softly. "Last Christmas broke me," she said. Damien kissed her temple. "And this one proves you healed." The message came through Vera's assistant. Preston wanted to meet. No cameras, no lawyers, just a conversation. Imani agreed, on her terms. Neutral location, 1 hour. No press. When he arrived, he looked smaller. Not broken, just humbled. He sat across from her in the glass-walled conference room. "I came to say thank you," he said. Imani raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For not destroying me," he said. She nodded once. "I didn't protect you, but you never stooped to vengeance. That matters." She folded her arms. "What do you want from me, Preston?" He sighed. "Nothing," he said. "Just to tell the truth. You were always the stronger one. I see that now." She stood. "You're right, and I hope you never forget it again." Imani returned to Magnolia House to find a courier waiting. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter. "Imani, I won't ask for forgiveness. I see now that power without compassion is nothing. You proved that legacy means nothing if it costs someone else their name. I hope Magnolia House continues to shine. Elizabeth Whitman." Imani folded the letter without emotion. She didn't need revenge. She had peace. That weekend, Damien parked his truck in the lot of Magnolia House for the last time, as a guest. Boxes in the back, new keys in his hand. Tasha handed him a labeled clipboard. "Welcome to joint ownership," she teased. Imani laughed. "And Damien?" He just looked around like he belonged there all along. Because he did. The courtyard that once sat empty now flourished with color. Volunteers tended flowers. Survivors painted murals. Kids laughed by the bench engraved with 100 names. Imani walked through slowly, fingertips brushing petals. This wasn't just a victory. It was resurrection. Damien and Imani stood at the front gate, arm in arm. He asked, "Would you do it all again?" She looked out over the property. "All of it," she said. "Even the hard parts." "Why?" "Because this time, I didn't lose myself to love," she said. "I found it." They turned to head inside. And the doors closed, not on a tragedy, but on a legacy, built together. Magnolia House had found peace, but peace doesn't mean rest. It means readiness. One morning, Vera burst into Imani's office with urgent eyes. "They're coming," she said. "Who?" Imani asked. "The National Grant Oversight Board," Vera replied. "2 of them, unannounced, and they want to walk the property. Interview staff, review records." Imani straightened slowly. "They think we're hiding something?" "No," Vera said. "They think we're a risk because we refused expansion on their terms. Now they're watching to see if we can handle the pressure of being the only non-corporate funded model." As the vetting team arrived, one of the officers asked about the fire incident months ago. Imani answered calmly. But they pressed. "Who inspected the faulty wiring? Who oversaw the installation?" Damien stepped forward. "I did," he said. Imani turned sharply. He added, "I installed it. I reported the issue when it came up, and I corrected it at my expense." The officer narrowed her eyes. "So the same man who helped build the place also caused one of its biggest risks." Imani started to speak, but Damien held up a hand. "I made a mistake," he said. "But I owned it. I stayed. I fixed it. And I haven't left since." After the inspection, the team left with stiff nods. That night, Vera pulled Imani aside. "They may pause your funding," she said, "even if it's temporary. The fire's back in the records now." Imani felt her stomach sink. "But this house is thriving," she said. "We've saved lives." Vera nodded. "They're not questioning the mission. They're questioning the model." Imani sat down. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel steady. Hours later, Imani stood alone in the office, lights off, tears threatening. Damien entered quietly. "I heard," he said. She didn't answer. He walked up and placed a single sticky note on her desk. It read, "You didn't build this for them. You built it for you." She looked up. "I hate that we still have to prove ourselves." Damien nodded. "I know. But they'll never understand something they didn't fight for." Imani exhaled. Long, deep. Then she said, "Let's fight smarter." By midweek, small conversations turned into quiet storms. Some donors whispered that Damien's fire incident made Magnolia look reckless. A few staff members questioned why he wasn't removed earlier. Imani heard it all, not from gossip, but from silence. People stopped greeting Damien when he walked in. They CC'd him less in emails. Some even avoided rooms when he entered. Tasha pulled Imani aside. "You have to say something," she urged. "People are looking for you to choose." Imani's stomach tightened. "I already did," she said. At the monthly board meeting, one of the advisors cleared their throat. "We're not questioning your judgment, Imani. They always were. But public image matters." Another added, "If you remove Mr. Rhodes from official oversight duties, the funding might stabilize." Imani sat still. "No," she said. The room fell quiet. One member frowned. "No?" She leaned forward. "I won't punish the man who helped build this place," and stayed even when it fell apart. That night, Damien found out what had happened in the boardroom. He came to Imani quietly. "You didn't have to protect me." She stepped forward. "I didn't." She paused. "I chose to protect the truth." He watched her carefully. "Do you regret it?" She met his eyes. "No," she said, "but I'm tired." At a fundraising dinner days later, Imani took the podium. Press cameras rolled. Supporters watched, waiting for her to speak about numbers. Instead, she said, "I've been asked to explain why Magnolia House still stands beside a man who made a mistake." She glanced at Damien. "I'll tell you why. Because we don't throw away people who own their wrongs. We don't erase someone who stayed when others walked out." The room was still. She added, "If we build a world that only allows perfect people to lead, then we build a world led by liars." Applause thundered. The next day, donors returned. Volunteers doubled. A survivor wrote a public letter titled, "Why I Chose Magnolia, Because They Don't Quit on People." Imani saw it posted on the wall outside her office. She stood in the hallway with Damien beside her, and for the first time in weeks, the silence felt like strength again. 3 weeks after the board's attempted pressure, an anonymous report was submitted to the city grant office. It claimed Damien misused funds during Magnolia's construction. There were no details, no evidence, just an accusation, but that was enough. Within hours, the city put a temporary freeze on Magnolia's additional support grants. Vera broke the news to Imani in the kitchen. "Someone wants you to burn," she said. Imani didn't flinch. She just whispered, "They'll have to use stronger matches." That night, Damien walked into Imani's office holding a box. "What's that?" she asked. "My resignation." She stared at him. "You think this helps?" "I think it protects you." She stood slowly. "Stop protecting me from the world. Stand in it with me." He looked down. "I don't want to be the reason Magnolia crumbles." "You're not," she said. "But leaving? That would be—" The next day, staff gathered in the main hall. Whispers ran through the room. Tasha stepped up first. "This isn't about a false accusation. This is about fear." Another staff member said, "We're losing funding. We need to be practical." Imani stood in front of them. "I've built this place brick by brick. With your help." With his help, she nodded to Damien. "And no lie, no political move, will erase the truth of that." Silence. Then slowly, one by one. People nodded. Days later, at a local town hall, Damien stood before an entire crowd. His voice was steady. "I've been accused. I've been misunderstood. I've made mistakes." He looked over at Imani. "But the one thing I will never do is walk away from the people who gave me a second chance." He paused. "That includes the woman who rebuilt my life without even trying." Applause echoed through the community center. And in that moment, the false accusations fell flat, because truth always speaks louder. 2 weeks after the anonymous complaint, an official letter arrived. Vera read it out loud. "After thorough investigation, the city finds no misuse of funds. All records align with proper project reporting." Imani exhaled. Damien said nothing, just nodded once. But that night, in the quiet of the tool shed, he let out the breath he'd been holding for months. The next morning, Imani arrived at Magnolia House to find something strange. Every woman currently housed there stood in the courtyard. No fanfare, no signs, no cameras. They simply stood, in a circle, around Damien. One woman, voice shaking, said, "You helped build this place, and in a way, you helped build us." Another whispered, "When the walls went up, I felt like my safety was real, because someone stayed long enough to make it so." Imani watched from the steps, hand over her mouth. Later that week, Imani was invited to a national nonprofit summit. She was asked to speak on legacy. Instead, she talked about love. Legacy isn't just buildings, it's people. It's the man who stayed behind the scenes, who took the blame, who never asked to be praised. She didn't say his name. She didn't have to, because everyone already knew who she meant. Back at Magnolia House, Tasha handed her a sealed envelope. No return address. Inside, a proposal. Not for funding, not for expansion, but for ownership. An anonymous donor wanted to buy and franchise the Magnolia House model across the country, and they wanted her to lead it, on her terms, without strings. That night, Imani sat on the back steps again. Damien joined her. "I have a question," she said, turning to him. "Yeah? If we grow this thing, yes, will you build with me?" He smiled. "I already started." Days after the anonymous proposal to franchise Magnolia House, Vera called Imani into her office. "You need to see this," she said, handing over a check for $5 million. The memo line read, "For women who rebuild and men who walk beside them." Below the signature, Veronica Lane. Imani blinked. "Wait, the assistant?" Vera nodded. "She inherited a company. She's disappeared from the press. But this, she made good on her promise," Imani whispered. Without telling anyone, Damien started work on the West Wing. He cleaned out a small, forgotten room, the one with the broken skylight and cracked tile. He redid it by hand. No crew, no blueprint, just vision. At the end of the week, he called Imani over. "This was supposed to be the meditation room," he said. She looked around, stunned. Soft walls, skylight repaired, a small fountain, a single love seat. "I made it for you," he said, "for days when the world is too loud." Imani stepped inside slowly. "I've never had a space that was just mine." He smiled. "Now you do." That night, as they stood on the rooftop, Imani said, "You've given me a lot. I haven't given you anything you didn't already deserve," Damien said. She turned to him. "If I ask you something now, don't answer unless you mean it." He nodded. "Would you stay if this becomes national, if it gets harder?" He took a deep breath. "Would you let me?" She smiled. "Yes," and that was their promise. No stage, no ring, no crowd, just agreement. To build a life, together. As they watched the stars, Tasha called Imani's phone. She didn't answer, but the voicemail was clear. "You're gonna want to call me. The state just approved your license to open Magnolia House in 3 new cities. Pack your bags, sis." Imani looked over at Damien. "Think we can do it again?" He chuckled. "I think we're just getting started." The first expansion city, Chicago. Imani and Damien arrived in the Windy City on a crisp morning. The proposed location was an abandoned school building on the south side. Chipped paint, broken windows, trash in the halls. But Imani looked at it the way she once looked at Magnolia House. Not for what it was, but for what it could be. Damien pulled out his notepad. "We're back to dirt and dreams," he said with a grin. At the first community board meeting, things didn't go as planned. Some local residents were wary. "We don't need outsiders telling us what healing looks like," one woman said. Another added, "You're not from here. How do we know this isn't just another PR stunt?" Imani didn't get defensive. She stood and said, "You're right." The room went still. "I'm not from here, but I don't want to lead this project. I want to listen. I want this house to have your fingerprints, not just my name." After the meeting, a woman approached her privately, mid-50s, weathered eyes, calm strength. "My daughter stayed at Magnolia House Atlanta last year," she said. Imani paused. She didn't tell us where she'd gone, just came home stronger, clearer. The woman held out her hand. "You got my vote. Now let's get the others." As they toured the new site together, Damien paused near the old library doors. "I used to fix schools like this before I met you," he said. "Always walked away before the real work began." Imani looked at him. "You stayed this time," she said. He nodded. "And now I want to build something even bigger." Back in Atlanta, Vera called. "We've been offered federal partnership," she said, "but it's conditional on expanding to 10 cities in 2 years. Imani exhaled. Damien looked at her. "Well," he said, "you ready?" She stared at the Chicago skyline. Not afraid, not hesitant, but lit from within. We're just getting started, she whispered. Just 2 weeks before groundbreaking in Chicago, an old associate from Damien's past surfaced online. A tabloid-style blog claimed Damien had unfinished debts tied to previous contracting jobs. No criminal accusations, but enough smoke to make corporate sponsors nervous. Imani read the article aloud. Vera asked quietly, "Do we respond?" Imani looked over at Damien. He simply said, "No lies, no hiding. We tell them the truth." Imani was asked to testify in front of a national funding panel. The room was full of donors, sponsors, and nonprofit leaders. A moderator asked, "Did you knowingly choose someone with a controversial record to oversee Magnolia's new builds?" Imani didn't flinch. "I chose someone who never ran, someone who stood by women when they had nothing left. If that's controversial, I welcome it." The moderator raised an eyebrow. "And you're bored?" "They stand behind him too," she said, which was true, because they'd just voted, and they stood unanimous. After the hearing, Damien met her outside. He looked calm. "Let me step back from Chicago," he said. Imani frowned. "Why?" "Because this expansion is bigger than both of us now. If stepping back gets you what you need, then it's worth it." She shook her head. "I didn't build this to leave you behind." He took her hand. "You didn't, but you built it to save lives." She didn't let him go. That night, Imani stood on the rooftop of the Chicago building, phone in hand, Damien on the other end. "I spoke to the board," she said. "I told them if you go, I go too." He was silent, then whispered, "So we fight together?" "Always," she replied. 1 week later, the board announced their support would remain. Funding stayed. Expansion resumed. And Damien was made lead director of community construction across all cities. Imani returned to Atlanta to find a crowd gathered in the Magnolia House courtyard. A banner hung between 2 trees. "Welcome home, Imani plus Damien. We're ready." Tears welled in her eyes, because they didn't just survive the final test. They passed it. Together. It had been exactly 365 days since the Christmas that changed everything. The air in Atlanta felt softer, not quieter, but calmer. Magnolia House now stood as a beacon across 3 cities, Chicago, Houston, and Oakland, all running under a model that started from heartbreak. Inside the original building, Imani walked down the hallway with a tablet in one hand and a peppermint tea in the other. She paused in front of the West Wing, the meditation room Damien built. A soft smile spread across her lips. It was now called the Room of Return. That afternoon, the garden buzzed with laughter. Kids raced between benches. Women planted winter herbs. Staff prepped for the Christmas Eve gathering. Imani walked out in a cranberry sweater and black boots. Tasha met her by the gate. "You ready for the end-of-year speech?" Imani groaned. "Are there cameras?" "Always." Damien appeared beside them. "You look like you're planning to run," he teased. She smiled. "Only into your arms." Later that evening, after all speeches, hugs, and laughter, Damien brought Imani upstairs. The office was dim. 1 candle lit the desk. In the center sat a small velvet box. "No," she whispered. He grinned. "Yes, but we already built a life, chose each other, yeah. But this is just ceremony." He opened the box. No diamond, just a thin gold band with 2 engravings. 1 brick at a time. 1 choice at a time. She picked it up. "I love that there's no diamond. I knew you would." She slipped it on. "I do," she whispered. Damien blinked. "That's for the wedding." She kissed him. "I'm just practicing." That night, they curled up in front of the fireplace. No news, no threats, no drama, just warmth. Imani looked at him and said, "Last Christmas I was losing myself." He kissed her forehead. "This Christmas, you're everything." They didn't need a ceremony to prove love had won, because every healed heart under that roof was proof enough. It was their first Christmas morning together, in their own space. They hadn't bought a mansion, not a penthouse. Just a simple home on the outskirts of Atlanta, 10 minutes from Magnolia House. Imani cooked eggs while wearing socks with candy canes. Damien brewed coffee while humming. Their kitchen was tiny. Their tree leaned to the left. And somehow, it was perfect. At 9 a.m., their doorbell rang. 3 children from Magnolia's transitional program arrived, handpicked by Vera and Tasha to spend the holiday with a family who knew how to love without asking for anything in return. Imani opened the door and dropped to her knees. The smallest girl held up a plate of homemade cookies. "We baked these." Damien crouched beside her. "Bet they taste better than mine." She giggled. "Yours burned." Everyone laughed. After breakfast, they sat in the living room. Fire crackling. One child leaned against Imani's shoulder. Another played with Damien's flannel sleeve. The eldest boy looked up and asked, "Why did you build that place?" Imani thought for a moment. "Because I didn't want anyone to feel invisible again." The boy nodded slowly. "I was invisible, but not this year." She didn't cry, but her soul did. Later, they walked the kids over to the original Magnolia house. It was quiet, just a few residents lingering. They stopped by the engraved bench. The kids traced names with their fingers. And then one girl asked, "Can we write our names someday too?" Damien knelt beside her. "You just have to do something brave." She blinked. "Like what?" "Like believing you matter." That night, Imani looked at the framed photo on their hallway wall. It showed her, Damien, Tasha, Vera, and a dozen women standing in front of Magnolia House 1 year ago today. Below it, in bold lettering, "We stayed, we built, we chose love." She leaned into Damien. "We did it," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "We're still doing it." 1 year ago, Imani stood at the same estate gate where she once left her wedding ring. Back then, she thought she'd lost everything. Today, she smiled, not because she won, but because she didn't give up. She wasn't the same woman. She wasn't trying to be. She had lost a marriage. She had gained herself. And then, she built something bigger than love. At the next community men's mentorship dinner, Damien took the stage. There were 40 men in the room, contractors, teachers, single dads, mentors. He looked out over them and said, "We don't need to be perfect to protect people. We just need to stay." He pointed toward the back, where Imani stood. She didn't need a hero. She needed someone to pick up a hammer and help her finish what she started. One man stood and clapped, then another, and soon the whole room was on their feet. Magnolia House installed a new wall in the entrance hallway. Photos of every graduate who transitioned out, names of every staff member who stayed more than a year, and letters, handwritten, from women who reclaimed their names. The wall was titled, "Proof We Chose Each Other." Imani ran her fingers along the frame. Damien came up behind her. "You're not done yet," he said. She smiled. "No," she whispered. "But I'm finally full." Love isn't just a word whispered between two people. It's a promise you keep when life gets loud. It's staying through the storm, even when you built your life on broken pieces. Some people run, others rebuild. But the greatest thing you'll ever do is choose love, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Bestie, if this story moved your heart even once, drop a comment below. Let's spread healing. Let's spread love. And if you believe second chances are real, don't forget to like this video so YouTube shares it with more hearts. Subscribe for more unforgettable love stories from Harrison Love Stories, because around here, love always wins.